Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh once again. So for today, okay, this is our fourth class or fourth lecture, week 4. Mean that here now we are already having third one quarter, one third, okay, one third of our class because altogether 12 weeks can, so now week 4. So in the previous classes or lectures, we have covered the first three topics, okay, which is, I mean, they are all the three important requisites or elements, okay, of a valid contract. So for today, this is the fourth one. Okay, I mean to complete the whole requirements, okay, of a valid contract. Okay, so the topic is consideration. So let's have a look what I have prepared. Okay, so this is the outline for our topic. Okay, if you have a look here, it's quite, I mean, there are quite a number of subtopics, but then of course it's not that long lah. Okay, usually we are going to discuss the rule, provisions, okay, wherever relevant, and then some of the cases lah, okay, case law. And in between, I might be asking question from time to time since there are only two of you today. I mean, right now. So, kena take turn lah to respond. Or maybe both of you can respond to the question. Just a simple one usually. Just to make sure that we have in that interactive session. So, basically, we're going to have a look at definition and the rule pertaining to consideration. And then we are going to look at the types of consideration. There are altogether three, okay, executed, executory, and past. And then the requirements of adequacy, okay, of consideration. And then a small topic of forbearance to sue, also related to consideration, and then performance of existing duty as well as public duty, and then accord and satisfaction, which is basically payment of a lesser sum, okay, related to loan lah usually, okay, loan transaction. And last but not least, exception to the rule. Okay, we have the rule, I mean the first subtopic is rule, and then we have exception to the rule, which is, I mean, is it possible to have a valid agreement even without consideration? So that's the last part lah of our today's class or lecture. So this is the introduction. So like I said just now, despite that we have managed to prove the first three elements, okay, so we started with offer and then we proceeded to acceptance. And last week we discussed about intention, okay, but still, okay, even though we have managed to prove all these three, still it's not complete. So it doesn't make a contract. It's not really enforceable contract yet. Because why? Both contracting parties, okay, offerer or offeree, they must provide consideration. I mean, very, very important. Okay, both parts. I mean, both sides, okay, of the parties here. If they wish to sue on the contract, if they want to enforce their contract. So having said that, meaning that here, each side, okay, each party here must, okay, must promise to give or must promise to do something for the other. It's like something which is exchange, okay, exchanging lah in nature. I mean, if A promise to B and then B promise to A, okay, whatever exchanges or promises here. Okay, let's move further. All right, this is all examples of consideration. Okay, all the simple example here. So if A, usually A is the promisor, the one who promised, okay, promises to do certain things here. To clean the house of another, I mean to clean the house belongs to B. So B is the promisee because A is the one who promised to do the service lah, to do the act here. So now, okay, what's the status, okay, in the eyes of law from the legal perspective? So A's promise to clean the house, okay, will only be enforceable by B, okay, and it is regarded as a contract if B has provided consideration. So it cannot be one-sided here. B just cannot simply wait, okay, for A to do some, I mean to clean his house. So on B's part, usually must pay lah, okay, or maybe must do something in return. All right, so both promise, I mean, it's like mutual exchange of promises. So consideration from B here might normally take the form of payment of money, or it could be payment of whatever modes, okay, of payment here. But again, I mean, it's not necessarily all the time, okay, but could consist of some other services to which A might agree. I mean, for example, A promised to clean the house and B promised to do something else. B promise to paint a picture, for example, for A. So it's possible as well. But usually, A promised to do the act and then B promised to pay most of the time. Okay, it's contract of service here. All right. And then another explanation here, okay? The promise of a money payment or service in the future, okay, is just as sufficient. Sufficient means valid, okay? It's just as valid as consideration. Because why? as payment itself or actual rendering of the service. I mean, it's okay if you promise to do it in the future. Okay, I mean, and then later, the time will come lah. You have to do the act, okay, when the time comes. But the promise today is as good as that you are doing it today or you are doing it later. No problem. Okay, it's not that you promise then you have to do it there and then. No need. Okay, so it could be done in the future. Payment could be done in the future, or even the act or the service here could be done in the future, provided both promises to each other. Okay, let's go further. This is the example or situation. Okay. All right. Now, basically, from the example just now, okay, what is actually consideration? I mean, what's the meaning of consideration? What's the interpretation of the word here? All right. So we can have some of the definition from judicial decision. Okay, we also have statutory definition. So you don't have to be worried because you can always refer to your Contracts Act and you can bring this act in your exams lah later. All right. So traditional definition. Okay, we can take it from the case of Curry and Misa. 19th century case, very old case, and judgment was made by Lash. Okay, Lash Justice lah. Okay, that's the name. He said that, I mean, he really explained the concept of consideration here, the meaning, okay, interpretation of the term. So he said that a valuable consideration, in the here, consideration must be valuable. Okay, has some value. In the sense of the law, okay, may consist either in some rights, interest, profit, or benefit. I mean, something that you wanted, okay, that has some value. So accruing to one party. I mean, it goes to one party. And then on the part of the other party, okay, some forbearance, detriment, loss, or responsibility. For example, payment of money can. So you need to part with your money. You need to pay lah. You need to let go your money in order to get the service, for example. Okay, suffered or undertaken by the other. So it could be either way here. It depends, okay, on the respective promises by each of the party here. Okay, for statutory provision, we have it in section 2, clause D. Okay, clause D here. I cut paste here. Okay, reproduce it here so that you don't have to flip through your contract act, but this is the actual cut paste lah. Okay, copy paste. So it is stated here when, I mean, this is the scenario or situation when, at the desire of the promisor, okay, promisor wants it, the promisee or even any other person, okay, has done or abstained from doing, or does or abstains from doing. I mean, has done in the past or does now, okay, right now, does or abstain, or promises to do, I mean, in the future, okay, promises to do or abstain from doing. What is something? Okay, doesn't matter, something. So such act or abstinence or promise here is called a consideration for the promise. So that's how it is defined statutorily. Okay, and then it starts with the word desire. Okay, that's one of the keywords lah. Okay, we call it keywords from the section of provision here. Okay, let's move further. All right, so now another rule pertaining to consideration. Okay, here because consideration is very important. Okay, without which there's no agreement, there's no contract. So agreement without consideration is void, is invalid, is not effective. Okay, cannot be enforceable. So meaning that here, a bear or gratuitous promise, which means a promise not supported by consideration, so it's not enforceable. So promise must contain certain valuable consideration. So later, okay, towards the end, okay, our final subtopic will be 3 exceptions lah. Okay, we have up to 3 exceptions in which, despite the rule that saying that, oh, agreement without consideration is void, but there could be exceptional situation in which even though no consideration, still the contract or the agreement is still considered as valid, can still be enforced. So the rule is quite balanced lah. Okay, we have the rule and we also have the exceptions, but very specific. It comes with all the conditions attached to it. You can always ask question in between in case you want to ask about anything. Okay, feel free to interrupt. Okay, because wherever possible, we want to make it interactive. So this is section 26, but we are going to come back here again towards the end of the lecture lah. Okay, because this is about exceptions. Okay, it covers the exception. All right, so later. Okay, now let's do some comparison. Because why? We have because under law of contract, we might come across the word give. Okay, give is giving away something lah. Okay, we have contract versus give. So we have contract, we have give. All right, the question. Okay, first question for today. Because we only have two kan today is either Nurul or Syarah lah. So you need to take turn okay, to respond. All right, my question. If A, okay, or maybe if Nurul okay, promises to give Shara a birthday gift, but later Nurul fails to do so. I mean, you promise, okay, I'll give you, for example, Nurul say, okay, I'll give you something which is valuable, lah, which Shara really looks forward. For example, I'll give you anything that you want to give her. Example, valuable, in which later you cannot really fulfill your promise. For example, Nurul, what do you want to give to Shara?
Treating her to a fancy dinner.
Fancy dinner, right? Fancy dinner usually at least it will cost 100 or even more, okay? Fancy dinner, okay? And later, okay, due to whatever reasons, okay, you cannot really enforce your promise. Okay, so can Shara enforce the promise by Nurul? Shara, do you think you can enforce or not?
No,
Now, why no? Why no?
because promise is just one side party. It's just Nurul that wanted to give me something, but I'm not giving her anything in return.
So is it contract or is it a gift actually? When she makes the promise, is it but in the nature of gift ke? Is it a contract?
A gift.
A gift lah because one way kan. So whenever we use the term gift, we also have the term donor and donee. Okay, it's like giver and receiver lah. Okay, donor mean donate lah or donation kan. You donate. I mean you don't receive something in return. Okay, thank you Shara. That's a good answer. Okay, so this is comparison of contract versus gift here. Because why? Okay, existence of consideration. Okay, if you prove elements of consideration, it will differentiate. Okay, it distinguish a contract from a gift. Because why? A gift is voluntary. Okay, a gift is gratuitous. Or gratis kan kalau bahasa Indonesia gratis isn't it gratis I mean free lah something that you don't pay transfer of property okay or whatever thing that you transfer from the giver to the receiver okay from one person to another from donor to the donee without something of value promised in return I mean no promise from the other party you don't receive anything it's just one way okay all right but for consideration okay I mean, consideration is the ordinary means for justifying the enforcement. I mean, why the contract, why the party under contract can enforce it? Because why? Both parties promises to each other. Okay. Whereas a gift, okay, bargain for exchange is lacking. That's why usually it's not really enforceable. So if the giver decides to have a change of mind later, cannot really proceed with the gift, for example, then you cannot bring the case to the court. Okay. So gift do not require an offer, acceptance, and delivery of the gift. Okay. And generally they are not enforceable because usually it's only one-sided, like you see this now. Bear in mind, give is not similar to unilateral contract because unilateral contract apparently on the face of it, it looks like one-sided. Actually, it's not because the other party need to perform. Okay, but for give, no performance because they tunggu je. Okay, you just wait and then you receive it. No performance on the part of the receiver. Okay, I mean, it could be misleading or it could be confusing but they are not the same okay despite we might have something like one-sided but then unit is one party kan but then it's not really one-sided lah in that sense okay for unilateral contract it is still a contract okay let's go to types of consideration so we have executed. Okay, executed is something at present. You do it there and then now. Okay, and executory, you promise to do it in the future. It's okay in the eyes of law. It's okay if you want to do it next week. You want to do it next month. You want to do it next year. Still okay. All right. Whatever thing that you promise to do in the future. But problem would revolve around past consideration. Okay, so executed, executory in the eyes of law is valid, is enforceable, no problem. But for the past consideration, we have slightly longer discussion and we have quite a number of cases to discuss about whatever issues pertaining to past consideration. All right, so I put all the explanation. Okay, for executed, you can see that something done or something made in return for the performance of an act. I mean something which is normal lah, normal contract. Okay, a typical one. And then if one party makes a promise in exchange for an act by the other party, the moment both parts of the promises are done, is completed, then it means they are executed consideration. Done. I mean promise and then done, then it is executed. So that's how it is being I mean that's the explanation lah, right? Okay. So what is meant by executory? So the word ORY too, in the future lah. Okay, you are going to do in the future. So there is an exchange of promises to perform act in the future. I mean, you want to do the act tomorrow and payment will take place the week after. No problem. Okay, both in the future. Or maybe you do it now, but payment tomorrow. So payment in the future. So payment is executory. Okay, example here, a bilateral contract for the supply of goods. Okay, whereby A promises to deliver goods to B at a future date and B promises to pay on delivery. I mean, if relate to online transaction kan, whatever thing you buy from, I mean, via online platform kan. I mean, you make the payment today, okay, but the delivery you're going to receive it maybe after 2-3 days kan, alright, or even you have to wait for 1 month. I mean, 1 week, okay, more than a week if it is from abroad kan, from China ke or from Indonesia, so it will be longer lah. So doesn't matter. I mean, it's good. Okay, it is valid in the eyes of law. Okay, let's say if A, okay, the one who's supposed to deliver, the seller, okay, does not deliver, then what's the status? So it is a breach of contract, and B can sue because B has paid. Doesn't matter lah whether the payment is still being held by a third party, okay, by the Shopee is the third party lah kan. I mean the one who hold the payment. Okay, I mean the moment you deliver, then only you receive the payment kan. That's how it is being done lah, mechanism. Okay, if A delivers the good, and then I mean let's say B make payment and then A delivers the good. So now his consideration, okay, change status from executory, then it becomes executed. It's possible. Okay, but not all contract contains executory and then executed, because sometimes everything executed. Promise there and then. Do it straight away lah. So there's no elements of executory. But both are valid. Okay, both are enforceable. Both are goods in the eyes of law. Okay, what is meant by past consideration? Yeah, the word is past kan. Something in the past. So it consists of something wholly. Everything has been performed. Okay, before the making of the promise. Mean that here, you do the act first, then only comes promise to pay. Pay for the act done, okay, wholly done already, like that. Different from executory because promise first and then the act later. But for past consideration, the act first and promise to pay later, as if promise to compensate lah, compensation. Okay, so it's not really good lah in the eyes of law. I mean, under contract law here. So the past act was done or omitted lah, omission, okay, not in response to the promise. I mean, the act done and then later only comes the promise. And then the promise is subsequent to the act. I mean, the promise comes later in terms of stage lah here, or omission and independent of it. Usually, they are not really related. I mean, it's like wholly voluntary. You do the act and you don't expect payment. But later, these people, I mean, this person promise to pay you. But you do the act first, okay? And then later, the promise to pay and later no payment. So can you enforce it or not? Remember, it's different from executory, okay? Because promise come first. For executory here, the act was done first. Independent actually, not really related lah, okay? So usually cannot really enforce it. Cannot ask for the payment lah. Too bad, okay? Cannot really force, okay, the promisor to pay. Let's go. Okay, here, just now, this is example lah, okay? Executed. So in unilateral contract, okay, A offers a 500 reward for the return of her lost handbag, okay, and then B finds the bag. I mean, offer is the promise, okay. B finds the bag and B returns it. So now B's consideration is executed because why? B has done his part, okay, finding the bag and return the bag. So is executed, right? So we have discussed thoroughly the case of Carlyle. Okay, executory just now. So executory, we can refer to section 2D and section 2E. Okay, and then we also have illustration A. Let's have a look. Did I place it here? Illustration A. I mean, this is the normal one lah. Okay, executory. A agrees to sell his house to B for 10,000. If nowadays, then it could be pet house kan for 10,000. I mean, there's no 10,000 house lah. If you check kan the latest currency exchange, not sure whether our economy is going down or maybe their economy is getting stronger. But the latest exchange for pound sterling as at today dalam 604. I mean, we have to pay 6 ringgit for sen, then we get 1 pound sterling. Okay. I mean, yelah, if you want to travel abroad kan, so that's the exchange lah. Kena prepare 6,000, then you have 1,000 pound sterling lah, like that. Okay. Alright, so here, BIS promised to pay, okay, the sum of 1,000 ringgit Malaysia is the consideration for A's promise to sell the house. I mean, that's exchange of promises. And A's promise to sell the house is the consideration for B's promise to pay the, I mean, exchange, okay, bilateral in nature here. So both of these consideration are lawful consideration, valid, okay, good, enforceable in the eyes of law. This is the normal, I mean, typical, okay, example. All right, we have a case, okay, the first case for today. Federal court, even though it's not that recent, very old case, 1980, okay, but a decision by federal court, and the rule stands good until today. Right, the case name is K. Murugesu and Nadaraja, so both Indian names lah, okay, both parties here, and because federal court decision, so obviously this is from lower court, okay, so this is an appeal from decision of a high court to order specific performance of agreement in writing. Usually, one of the remedies for civil action is specific performance. Okay, you want to have compensation, but sometimes you want to compel the other party to proceed with the performance. Okay, specifically perform the agreement, the contract lah here. Alright, what happened between them here? It involved landlord and tenant. Okay, so appellant was the landlord. Okay, and then the landlord, because he he owned the house. Okay, so he agreed to sell his house to the tenant respondent. Of course lah, at all time was his tenant. So I mean that here I owe a house, and then I want to sell it to my tenant, like that. Okay, and then the tenant was really desirous. I mean, really want the house lah. Basically here, he loved the house so much. So respondent, the tenant, was greatly desirous of owning the house, okay, because he had been resided for so long. So better become the owner rather than tenant, kan? I mean, you own the house rather than paying monthly installment for the tenancy agreement. So he keep on pestering the landlord into selling it to him lah. Keep on lah asking, please sell to me, okay? And then landlord, okay lah, I will sell to you, okay? So they met and then they agreed lah. Okay, here, right? The agreement is on a scrap of paper. I mean, they didn't really execute a proper agreement yet. Okay, so they just put it jot down on a scrap of paper, and then the appellant had written lah. I mean, landlord written here, 2nd January 1972. Okay, but then the report 1980 kan, because it is up to federal court. So that's the duration of time lah. Okay. So so it is stated, I mean, it is written on the scrap of paper here. I agree to sell my house, okay, to the present tenant, all right, for whatever amount here, okay, within 3 months from the date. Okay. SJD is signed. I mean, the scrap, I mean, the letter or the paper or the whatever document here was properly signed by the registered owner, by the landlord. Okay. This is very important piece of evidence. Can remember whatever in writing. Then what happened next? Okay, and later nothing happened. Okay, I mean nothing, click lah here. So nothing turned on the communication of the offer to sell, okay, from appellant to the respondent, or on the respondent's acceptance and communication of that acceptance to him, okay. So the court came to the conclusion, I mean the lower court, high court here, okay, yeah, there was an offer and there was acceptance. So, I mean, yeah, this is a binding contract. All right. But when the case went up to federal court, okay, appeal here, the counsel, okay, was trying to argue, okay, one of the submissions, he said that, well, there's no consideration here, okay, for the offer to sell. And because of that, agreement was void as being without consideration, because he was looking at the fact that, oh, nothing changed hand yet. So, I mean, there's no consideration lah, only a bare promise lah here. All right, promise to sell and promise to buy, but there's nothing move here, okay? No consideration. So that's he was trying to argue. But whether federal court agreed with his submission here. All right, the court said that, okay, I mean, that's why the case is important. The agreement, okay, must be seen to be a case of executory, because everything was promised in the future, okay, to sell in the future or to pay in the future lah, not payment there and then, okay, when they prepared, I mean, when they signed the scrap of paper. So a promise is made by one party in return for a promise made by the other, okay. So in such a case, each promise is the consideration for the other. No worries, no problem, okay. And then The question of consideration, okay, was a very elementary, very, very basic lah, okay, nature in a matter of an offer to sell and acceptance. But and then court said, well, this counsel argument, okay, contention here was entirely unfounded. No basis lah, because it doesn't matter. It's not really executed, but it is executory. So executory is as good as executed, because the counsel was trying to argue constitution must be executed, then only it is valid lah. Here it's okay to to complete the whole thing in the future because they have promised. Okay, landlord has agreed to sell, so cannot really back off lah here. Okay, even though there could be silence from both parties, but they have agreed lah. They have to proceed. They have to complete whatever things lah, especially conveyancing part kan. Alright, it will take time. So that's about it. It's quite straightforward case actually. Okay, except the focus is more on the council's argument in which the court make it clear, okay, that here executory is valid, okay, as valid as executed. It's not related to past lah, obviously, okay, there's no issue of past consideration. Okay, let's have a look at another case now by Court of Appeal, okay, just now by Federal Court. So the case name is Wong Hon Leong David and Nur Azman bin Adnan. Here, it's about asking for try to bypass or try to make it faster, expedite application. Okay, remember whenever it involves sale and purchase of certain land and you want to convert the status of the land, you will take time. Okay, whenever it involves land matters kan, land office, usually it will be 2, 3, 4, 5 years lah. Alright, so here, appellant was a director of a company. Okay, doesn't matter whatever name here, Welton Berhad. Okay, and the company intended to develop its agricultural land, okay, into housing estate. You have to convert the status first, cannot proceed, okay, because you want to make it into housing estate. So company subsequently submitted application to the land administrator for conversion. Okay, need to convert and need to subdivide the land, okay, because many units get of a house on that piece of land. And then the third bullet there, okay, to obtain speedy approval of application. So now appellant was asking for some assistance lah here. So appellant, the director of the company, he sought the respondent's assistance. Okay, and then he asked for assistance, so he will pay lah, okay, for whatever effort, okay, on the part of respondent here. So he verbally, there's nothing in writing. This is oral agreement. He verbally agreed to pay respondent that amount of money. Okay, that one in 1990s, which is very big amount because it involved a big piece of land lah here. Okay, millions. Obviously, that's why even the payment here is very, very huge lah. A big amount of money here. 268,000, okay, for the service of what? To make it faster lah, okay. Maybe we call it fast track whatsoever lah, alright. Might be asking, is it legal? Okay, but then illegality is not the issue here. Okay, illegality could be raised in some other, in different contexts lah, obviously. Alright, so respondent, after, because due to the verbal agreement, verbal promise kan just now, very huge amount of money paid, promise. So respondent wrote a letter to the Menteri Besar, okay, on behalf of the company. So he was asking for Menteri Besar assistance for early approval, early approval of the application. So Menteri Besar has very strong power lah. Can really instruct the land office to expedite or prioritize this one. Important. So please do it fast lah. Okay. So Menteri Besar made a notation on the letter, okay, telling the land administrator that he was supportive of the application. Put it, maybe in whatever chop or whatever, okay, support, okay, supported whatsoever. And within a year, not even a year, 8 months later, application was approved by state authority. So 8 months is considered very, very fast. Okay, usually it's 2, 3 years lah. Okay, now 8 months, very, very fast. Okay, so he got the approval. All right, and then, there was payment lah, obviously, because remember he promised to pay 268 kan, all right. Appellant paid the respondent 100,000 ringgit Malaysia. Okay, after first when he saw the Menteri Besar's notation lah, the note. Okay, but later when he got everything was being done, okay, settled, got the approval, he refused to pay the balance. Okay, so 100K, oh that's it, I don't want to pay anymore. Okay, I got it and then I don't want to pay. Okay, all right. Now, respondents was claiming lah for the balance sum, okay, as well as asking for extra 100 100,000 ringgit Malaysia, okay, because the land has some problem lah with regard to the access, kan, no access whatsoever, so need to pay extra, okay, because he was the one who managed to resolve the problem, okay. So appellant argued lah. I mean, I don't want to pay. Okay, what's your reason? What's your argument here? He argued in the court, all right. Oral promise, okay, whatever that he promised was unenforceable. Why is that so? There was lack of consideration. This is another argument relating to consideration. Okay, all right. So what's the observation by the court? All right. Again, I mean similar to the what's the case again? Just now 1980 case. Okay, Nadaraja apa tadi? Lupa the name.
Murugesu.
Okay, Murugesu. Okay, and Nadaraja. Alright. I mean, similar observation here. Okay, the Court of Appeal, alright, clearly observed or held that it is not, I mean, strong word here. It is not and has never been. I mean, two wording here very strong. Okay, has never been the law in this country, in the law in Malaysia, that to support an agreement, consideration must always be executed. So executory consideration sufficient actually. I mean, it's okay. You promise you will get approval later. It's okay. Payment you will do it later. It's okay. But the moment you refuse to make payment, then it is a breach already because you have promised lah, even though it is verbal or oral agreement. You might be asking, is it legal? Can I enforce or not? So we take it as legal lah. I mean, unless you raise the issue of whatever thing which is illegal. Okay, under section 24, that one. Here, we only focus on consideration, and then on the part of executory, it is okay. I mean, it is sufficient. It is valid in the eyes of law. Okay, so are we allowed to take the fast track? I mean, if it is allowed, then it's okay lah. Sometimes it's not allowed. Backdoor, maybe here it's not really backdoor lah. I mean, Menteri Besar has the power to prioritize certain application, kan? Of course, I mean, there's payment, but it's not paid to Menteri Besar here, okay? Payment is done to the one who asked Menteri Besar to put the notation whatsoever. Alright, so that one, we leave it beside. I mean, it's not really our concern because we just focus on consideration. It could be elements of illegality, kan, here. Alright, let's go to the third one. Okay, past consideration. Okay, so if one party voluntarily performs an act, okay, and the other party makes a promise, okay, the consideration for the promise is said to be in the past because why? The act was not in response to the promise here. Okay, so at common law, what's the rule governing past consideration? Ada soalan just now. After this, okay, both of you need to respond. So at common law, the rule is that past consideration is no consideration. I mean, it's not good. As if no consideration. Okay, it's not valid and cannot really be used as a ground to sue lah on the contract here. Example here, okay. So this is one example. Okay, think of some other example. So A give B a lift home in his car. Okay, give a ride home lah. And on arrival, okay, B was so happy. B was so indebted, okay. So he promised to give A 50 ringgit towards the petrol. He was so happy. Maybe he arrived with convenience. He arrived so early, okay. But then A actually, what if the B doesn't want to pay later? Promise first and then later, oh, no money to pay, or reluctant to pay, okay? So A cannot enforce this promise because why? His consideration, okay, what's consideration here? Giving B a lift or a ride home is in the past. Okay, B was the one who started to give. Okay, no payment, no promise yet. Promise to pay was made later, so cannot really enforce if B doesn't pay. If B pays, then that's the end of the story. Here, breach lah. I mean, breach of promise, but then it's not really the case of executed or executory. It is in the past. Okay, both of you, Shara and Nurul, kan? Okay, can you think of any other example of past consideration that might be around you lah? Okay, maybe common example, a typical one. Shara, cannot take it. Any simple example will do.
Saya teringat case tu. There's like one person, dia lemas, and then there's another person selamatkan orang tu. So after dia selamatkan orang tu janji nak bayar dia duit.
Saving the life lah here.
Yeah, for saving the life.
And
But
dia
then
tak bayar.
dia tak bayar.
I mean, he makes the promise when he's happy. So later you cannot make promise when you are happy, kan? Later you don't keep your promise. Okay, thank you. Okay, accepted. I mean, saving the life is done and later promise to pay lah because feeling of indebted, kan? For example, okay, but then no payment even despite the promise to pay. Thank you, Syara. Nurul, any example?
Hmm.
Cannot think.
Tak boleh
Alah.
tak boleh fikir, doktor.
Boleh je. Promise apa you buat assignment and then your friend promise to pay and then later tak bayar pula kan. Whatever thing, I mean you do the act first on your own effort, on your own initiative and they can promise to pay for whatever thing that you have done and later no payment. You feel irritated lah kan. So can you actually ask or I mean can you enforce or you compel the one who promised to pay I mean cannot.
I think parking kot.
Parking.
Tipping. Pasal parking.
Macam mana
Uh,
parking? How does it happen?
Macam kalau kita parking dekat tepi jalan tu kan,
Aha.
sometimes it is not governed. Yang macam orang yang tolong kita bagi way tu bukan tanah dia pun kan. Tapi
Mhm.
dia tolong je. So it is not obligatory for us to bagi dia duit. So bila kita tak bagi dia duit, dia dah tolong kita, dia annoyed. Lepas tu dia macam buat bunyi-bunyi yang macam
But
annoyed tu
but
kot.
there's no promise involved kan? No promise to pay pun at the first place. How to relate?
Tak ada.
You
Tapi
can
dia
give
macam anggap kita akan bayar dia. Macam tu lah.
assumption to pay.
Assumption to pay.
Hmm.
Tak boleh, tak boleh.
Tak nampak sangat dah. Not really that clear. Lagipun yang tu involve macam something caution kan yang tu kan. Macam ada paksaan.
Yes.
Ah. Macam paksa pula nak paksa kita bayar kan. We don't want that service pun actually, isn't it?
Betul.
Elements of extortion tu pun ugut-ugut lagi kan. If you don't pay then tengok kereta you dah salah after that. Isn't it? It happens. Kan biasa orang takut. That's why people pay. Nanti habis kereta kan. You don't want to pay RM5, RM10 and then go end up you need to repaint your car for RM200 kan for example. I mean it's real especially in certain areas kan or big black areas ke or hot areas ke. Okay, tak apa. Later. Nanti ada lagi soalan. Alright. Thank you, Nurul. Late in the afternoon kan. Evening. So, semua orang penat. Okay, this is a landmark case. Okay, for past consideration. Not really old. Okay, old lah. Very old. I mean, quite old. 1951. In re. Okay, in re, whenever you see the word in re, it is in the matter of lah, obviously. I mean, really, it's about property usually. Okay, distribution of property. So, in the matter of MacArdle, so of course, the deceased. Okay, because it's about distribution of property of the deceased. This is CH669. Okay, the law report here. Alright, in this case, plaintiff is a lady, okay, a wife. So she was so hardworking, okay, and she was so creative. So she carried out improvement lah. Okay, she did all the repairs on the bungalow. Okay, and then status of the bungalow. Okay, actually, this bungalow had been left in trust to her husband and his siblings. I mean, she stepped in to do all the decoration, to do all the repairing lah, improvement. Okay. And then after she has completed the work, okay, so the siblings, I mean in bahasa we call it biras lah, I think, okay, siblings of the husband, okay, the siblings they sign a document. I mean there's a proper document, okay, stating that plaintiff because for whatever work that she has done, okay, should get this amount of payment lah, 488 pound sterling from proceeds of sale because they wanted to sell the bungalow, okay, they want to convert to cash lah, okay. But later, okay, they managed to sell it off and then they received the money, but no payment was made lah. They agreed to pay. Later, feeling very stingy, no need, don't want to pay lah. Alright. First, they were happy and they managed to sell off the bungalow. Now they don't want to pay to the wife. Okay, right. So now the court held that, I mean, the wife was trying to ask the court to, to enforce the promise lah. It's quite big amount of money, okay, in 1951. So the promise was unenforceable even though it is properly signed. Okay, there's a proper document here because why? All the work had been done before the promise was made. I mean, which one come first? work first and then promise later. Okay, and nobody asked her to do the work actually. Okay, I mean, she did on her own effort or initiative here. So therefore, okay, whatever situations here, okay, they are all considered as past consideration. Promise to pay later. Okay, in normal situation, in typical or enforceable contract, promise to pay must come before the wife did the work lah, basically here. Alright, but then this is general rule. But then if we look closer, if the wife can prove there was previous request, that is possible to claim. But for this one, no request at all actually here. That's why she could not claim. Too bad kan? I mean, she did all the work, okay, all the hard work here, okay, all the expenses, but she could not recover. I mean, she could not claim. So the court held that, I mean, the court also stated that there is exception, okay, if the wife can prove previous request. If the promisor has previously asked the other party to provide goods or services, then a promise made after they are provided will be treated as binding. So this is from the case of Lempley and Braithwaite. Even the earlier case lah, the classic case, Lempley and Braithwaite, yeah, in 1615. But for in Adel, okay, plaintiff could not prove in the court that there was previous request by the siblings, okay, who promised to pay. I mean, she's the one who I mean, on her own effort lah. What was the word? I mean, proactive. I mean, you do it on your own initiative lah. Nobody asked you to do it. Okay, you pernah pandai do it, and then somebody promised to pay you, and later no payment. So you feel irritated, but too bad you cannot claim lah. Because why? You cannot prove in the court. There was request, okay? On the part, I mean, it's not really promised, but then you must prove there was request so that we can treat everything in one single transaction so that it can be enforceable. Okay, the case, I mean, this is the, exception lah. Okay, if the party or the promisee can prove previous request. In Lempley and Braithwaite, very, very old case, it's about asking for royal pardon. Okay, could be relevant to our current situation kan, but no one asked for royal pardon. I mean, our ex-PM kan, they said he was getting royal pardon later lah, maybe. Alright, so here Braithwaite, okay, he killed someone. I mean, that's the crime lah, okay, and then he asked Lempley, okay, B and L here, to get him a pardon. I mean, L is somebody who's in charge, I mean, who is involved lah, and he can, I mean, he has the authority to facilitate the pardon here. Okay, so L got the pardon, okay, and then I mean managed to get whatever thing which is being asked by Braithwaite here, and he gave it to Braithwaite, okay, and Braithwaite also happy because now got the pardon kan, so he promised to pay £100, okay, that one in 17th century, I think very, very big amount of money here for his trouble. But then later he didn't pay. He only, I mean, he was happy, he promised to pay, and he didn't pay later, right? But the court held that even though Lempley's consideration was in the past. I mean, he got the pardon first, then only comes promise to pay. But Braithwaite's promise to pay here, okay, could be linked. We can trace actually, okay, could be linked to Braithwaite's earlier request, and they are all treated as one agreement, one long agreement lah, basically, okay, despite the timeline or time factor here. So the court said that, well, we can have this thing by way of implication. It could be implied that at the time of the request, okay, Lempley would be paid. I mean, it's not really free service lah here, okay, because he was the one who asked to get him the pardon, even though there's no promise to pay. Okay, here it's not something that which is free of charge. So this payment, even the promise to pay later, but who started to ask for the pardon here? Okay, so that's why the court said, well, there was request. So impliedly, there could be payment together with the request. Maybe the amount was stated later lah. That's what the court said. So still can enforce the payment, even though it involved past consideration. Okay, let's go to the position in Malaysia. Okay, we have section 2D just now. We also have section 26, okay, under exception, but we are going to zoom at 26B as well as illustration. Okay, so under Malaysian law, okay, past consideration is recognized, okay, if, I mean, we need to fulfill elements of at the desire of the promisor, and as well as the act was voluntarily done. I mean, two things that the party needs to prove lah, okay, because if cannot prove these two elements, then it's not valid. I mean, it's not really enforceable lah, okay, it's not good. here, how do we know this is the requirement, the conditions? Okay, because why? You can see clearly the word can when at the desire of the promisor, okay, blah 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 here, has done or has abstained from doing. This is something in the past. So it is good. But provided the proviso here is at the desire. So if no desire, then whatever thing you did in the past is not really enforceable. Okay. And then how do we know it's voluntarily done here? Requirement. Okay, that one is taken from section 26, clause B here. Okay. It is a promise to compensate, okay, wholly or in a part, a person who has already, has already voluntarily done something for the promisor or something which the promisor was legally compellable to do. Illustration here very, very clear, okay, is between A and B. A finds B first, okay, the act of finding the purse, and A give it to B. All right. So B, the purse owner, was so happy, so promises to give A 50 ringgit. So this is a contract, legally enforceable. Why? A finds the purse voluntarily. Okay. So, and then he give it to B, the owner. So promise comes later, but because the act was done voluntarily, then it is enforceable. So it's either you prove it under 2D or you prove it under 26B, okay, for the thing which has been done in the past. So it is good and enforceable. But without which, if you cannot prove a desire, you cannot prove voluntarily, then cannot really claim lah, or cannot really enforce the promise made for past consideration. Right, so it's quite clear actually, right? Especially we have illustrations. Okay, let's go to the case law. This is to illustrate application of past consideration in Malaysia. This is decision by High Court. The case name is HSBC. Full is Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation lah. Okay, HSBC. So the finance company was suing Syarikat United Leong Enterprise Sdn Bhd here. So this Syarikat United Leong here, okay, first defendant, the syarikat, okay, and second defendant and his wife were directors, okay, directors of the company lah, okay, and this all the people here, the company together with the directors, they were customer of HSBC, okay, and then they have a loan, they obtain loan lah, so that's normal. So loans were given by HSBC to the company. All right, and then it was, the loan were secured by charges and debentures lah. There must be certain charge, okay. And then as usual, okay, the loan cannot be paid. So the company was unable to repay the loans. So now HSBC asked for payment lah from the company. So what happened next? Okay, so in order to, to remedy the situation, okay, so the directors, okay, agreed to sign a guarantee because after all, the company owned by them, okay, here. So a guarantee was signed by the second defendant, okay, the husband and wife, remember, okay. But then despite the signing of guarantee, still no payment. Sign the guarantee, okay, we guarantee to make the payment, okay, but no money was advanced after execution of the guarantee, okay. Now, HSBC sued all the three defendants lah. Sued the company, sued the director, okay. The money lent to the first defendant and guaranteed by the second defendant. All right. Now, because the contention raised, okay, by the debtor lah kan, creditor was asking for payment. So whether the guarantee was void for lack of consideration. Remember, the guarantee was signed later kan. Guarantee for what? Alright, because for loan contract, no problem. Okay, but for guarantee document, was it void for lack of consideration? So what's the court decision here? The court held that, well, this defense was unenforceable. The defense of an unenforceable past consideration or no consideration must fail because why? The court said, well, despite that the loan was given in the past, guarantee will comes later kan. This is actually in the nature of past consideration. But the court said, well, it can be enforceable even though it's past consideration. Okay, past consideration can be a good consideration lah. Okay, because why? For a guarantee, even if the benefit was given before execution of the guarantee lah, loan was given before the signing of the guarantee document. Provided that, okay, in a one-off transaction like this one lah, okay, benefit was given to the principal debtor, was given, that's the word, at the desire of the guarantor. So this is an example of application of section 2D. The loan, okay, even though in the past, what was given at the desire of the data lah kan, desire of the syarikat together with the director, right? And another relevant section is section 80, specifically on guarantee. Okay, here, consideration for guarantee. So anything done or any promise made for the benefit of the principal debtor may be a sufficient consideration to the surety for giving the guarantee. So cannot really say, oh, we received the loan, it is in the past, so it's not enforceable. It is, okay, under section 2D plus section 80. Okay, but 80 only, is meant to cover or embrace the situation of guarantee alone lah. So all other kinds of other agreement, it won't be covered lah. Alright, but we can always rely on section 2D. Is everyone okay? Everyone tu two of you lah kan? Belum join kan? Hajar belum sampai. Dah ada ke Hajar?
Assalamualaikum doktor.
Oh, dah ada. Wah, thank you. You are here. Nanti Aisyah nak panggil nama you. Tadi I keep calling names. Syarah, lepas tu Nurul. Now Hajar. Okay. Hajar, last time your house yang flat tu ke?
Betul.
So how's everything? Okay dah?
Quite bad lah doktor.
Quite bad.
I think
Ya Allah.
it takes about 3 days to, surut betul lah.
So your house is affected? But
No, it just way out.
Oh, for you to go out lah from your
Yes.
place, your area.
Uh-uh.
But no, I think no more flat kan? Ada lagi flat? No more.
No.
Because in Klang Valley, Gombak lah kan, panas so every day is so hot lah. But today ada sikit hujan. But usually we have very, very hot weather. So opposite to flood kan? Because flood raining. Raining. Alright. So, Alhamdulillah you are here.
Alhamdulillah, thank you
Okay,
doktor.
alright. So we still have 20 minutes before we break like for Maghrib. Okay, anyway, because you missed out the earlier part kan of our lecture. Our lecture will stop by 9 tonight, okay? And next week, because we have presentation, so lecture will stop by 8:30. So the final 30 minutes too will be, we are going to utilize it for presentation and short discussion. Okay, so but for tonight, because there's no presentation, because Dr. Zaidi has left, he is supposed to present today kan, so no presentation, so it will be lecture up to 9 lah, okay, for tonight, for today. Okay, let's move further. Okay, let's go to the case. Okay, this case is important because we learn it under consideration, but later when we go to next topic, okay, we are going to learn privity. Also, we are using the similar case. The same case. All right, so let's go. Let's have a look what happened in this case lah. Okay, Kepong Prospecting Limited and Schmidt, decision by Privy Council. Okay, those days before we have our verbal court, we have sometime, but then the final appeal will be done by Privy Council. Okay, those days. This one 1968. Alright, so in this case, why the case is important? Because in this case, Privy Council clearly stated that past consideration is good consideration. Because why? The parties were trying to argue it is not valid or it is not good because it is in the mode of past consideration. Okay, let's have a look what happened between the parties here. Okay, take note of the timeline as well. Okay, here. In 1953, okay, Mr. Tan, but Tan is not a party to the suit here. So, dalam chatbot ada apa? Noted, doctor. Okay. Alright, so here, in 1953, okay, Tan applied for a prospecting permit for iron ore. Usually, in order for you to do certain mining, you need this permit lah, prospecting permit. Okay, and then Schmidt, a party to this case. Okay, Schmidt, who was Schmidt here? He was a consulting engineer. So he was the one, very important person. So he assisted in the negotiations in order to get the prospecting permit. And then they managed to get the permit. Okay, now Mr. Tan, he wrote to Schmidt. So he made the promise lah. Okay, I'll pay you this 1% of the selling price of all the ore that we are going to get from the mining lah. Okay, that might be sold in payment for the work Schmidt had done. Because we were so happy that you assist with the negotiation. All right. Remember, the year promise to pay comes later lah. All right. Negotiation work was completed and later only Tan promised to pay. Okay, had done and might do in starting mining operations. Okay, promise here is for the work in the past, negotiation in the past, as well as whatever work in the future. Okay, and might do in starting mining operation. All right. And then they they were close lah. I mean, Tan and Schmidt here, they were good friends. Okay, they were partner in work. So Schmidt and Tan, they set up a company called Kepong Prospecting Limited. Okay, and a year after, okay, remember it started from in 1953. In 1954, okay, the company had the company and Tan. Okay, just now Schmidt and Tan. Now the company Kepong Prospecting and Tan, they made an agreement. Okay, now the company took over Tan's obligation. Remember, Tan made a promise. Now company step in. Okay. Now the company took over Tan's obligation to pay 1% lah as agreed. Okay, as per 1953 agreement. And then two years after, I mean from 1953 to 1955, the company and Schmidt made an agreement. I mean they entered into another agreement. I mean lots of agreement here. Okay, wherein what is the terms here? The company agreed to pay Schmidt 1% of all ore that might be won from any land comprised in the 1954 agreement. I mean, they make a variation or they sign a fresh agreement. Okay? And then clearly stated in the agreement, in consideration of the services by the consulting engineer, Schmidt lah, okay? And on behalf of the company, okay, prior to its formation. I mean, the company promised to pay whatever thing prior to the existence of the company, okay, as well as okay after incorporation, as well as for future services. All right, and then okay, that's the agreement. Okay, that's the wording. And later, usually kan, I mean they were on good terms, and later they quarrel. So here a dispute arose leading up to Schmidt Schmidt SC, okay, SCH. So C is missing. Schmidt dismissal, okay, as managing, I mean, he was the managing director lah of the company. So he was being dismissed. That's why Schmidt now sued the company lah. All right, because so now Schmidt commenced this suit claiming all monies payable to him under 1954 plus 1955 agreement. Two agreements lah basically here. And then the company didn't want to pay. So they put up the defense here. The company alleged that no consideration given by Schmidt for the obligation undertaken by the company. Meaning here, oh, we promised, but then you didn't do anything. So we are not going to pay you. No consideration from your part towards us lah. I mean towards the company. Right, let's have a look what happened. Okay, how the court decided the case. All right. Privy Council held that, okay, there was actually sufficient consideration, okay, from Schmidt to the company. All right, I mean, whatever consultation work, okay, it is something which is sufficient in the eyes of law lah, okay. And the services rendered prior to the company's formation could, I mean, remember there are few things kan that the company promised, but the court said the services rendered prior to the company's formation, I mean, prior to the company's existence, prior to the company's setting up lah, could not amount to consideration. Because why? Non-existent company cannot receive services or bind itself to pay for services rendered before its incorporation. I mean, company can promise to pay, but after it is being incorporated, cannot say, okay, we promise to pay you whatever amount of money prior to our incorporation. It's like if a human being, or prior to the birth, kiranya belum lahir, then you dah ada hutang like that lah, more or less, okay, obligation to pay. But the court said, well, services rendered after incorporation, okay, this is something which is validly amounted to consideration, okay, for an agreement under section 2D. I mean, it can be in the nature of executory. I mean, whatever services that Schmidt will give to the company is okay. You make the promise today, but services was given later. It is valid. After all, the company now is in existence. But prior to the company's formation, that one cannot really enforce lah. All right. Is everyone okay? We have 10 minutes before we break. Okay, let's compare now. Okay, because we have a rule in common law and rule under Contracts Act. Okay, CA is not Court of Appeal. CA is Contracts Act 1950. Okay, if we look closer, okay, if we look deeper, section 2D just now, okay, it doesn't cover all cases lah, because it has some conditions attached to it. All right, so it is restricted to only cases of at the desire of the promisor. which means there could be prior request, okay, by the promisor. I mean, something that which is done that you want it, okay, at your desire here. Because without such desire or request, okay, so the past act of the promisor is not good consideration. All right, but so if you to compare, okay, it is quite similar lah to common law here, even though they are using different term. Okay, the past act or commission by the promisor is good consideration for a promisee if it was at the request of the promisor. I mean, under common law, they use the word request, but for us at the desire, because sometimes desire not necessarily that you prove elements of request kan. Okay, request usually something which is more expressive. Desire, it could be something which is subtle. You can also say, yeah, this is my desire, or this is I request because I desire, but not necessarily that you say you request for it lah. Okay, but that could be some subtle difference, okay, between the two rules of law here. But more or less, it is, I mean, they are similar, the two rules here. Okay, and then what's the current position, okay, at common law? Okay, now they have a more recent case under, I mean, reported in the case of Pao On, okay, Pao On and Lau Yu Lang, okay, I mean, they make it very clear exception lah, okay. So the rule that past consideration is not good consideration is subject to the exception as discussed by the Privy Council in Pao On. Okay, I mean, basically they have a very clear exception lah for past consideration. Okay, and then I mean, what was the criteria? So I put it here. Ada tiga, right? There are three here. So past consideration can be good consideration where, okay, the first one, promisee performed the original act at the request. Again, they maintain the word request. And then another one, it was clearly understood or implied, okay, between the parties that the promisee would be rewarded for the performance of the act. I mean, impliedly we can see, oh, you are going to be paid lah. It's not something which is FOC. And then the third one, actual promise, okay, made. If made before the promisee provided the consideration, must be capable of being enforced. I mean, something that can be enforceable. Okay, so in other words, it gives rise to a legally binding contract. I mean, in the nature of contract lah, basically. It's not really like social promise ke. I mean, this is something which is contractual in nature. You can enforce it later lah. Alright. So the, I mean, Privy Council make it clear and refine the rule. But still, okay, we have the element of at the request of the promisor. Alright. So this is Pao On. Okay, position under Pao On. Okay, and this is some of the, I mean, what is position in Malaysia? Basically, we follow lah. I mean, more or less our law is similar. Okay, but we have sensitive provision. So this is some of the recent cases. Not so recent, but quite recent lah. Okay, here we have 2014 case by High Court, Affin Bank. And then we also have 2004 case. This is Court of Appeal, Chong Hin Trading. I mean, lots of issues, but one of the issues pertaining to past consideration. And then Supreme Court decision 1992, okay, Southeast Asia Insurance and Nasir Ibrahim. So this is the three cases in which it shows to us application of past consideration in Malaysia. But generally, we follow, I mean, our laws are quite similar to common law. But for us, we have, I mean, it is by way of statute lah. We have statutory provision. Okay, I mean, we stop early because now this is another subtopic. Okay, adequacy. So now it's 7:10. So we are going to, I mean, we are going to resume our session by 7:40 or 7:42 ke macam tu lah, more or less. Okay, I stop share for a while and then I pause. Okay, let's continue, so that hopefully you can finish early. Okay, another subtopic for the topic consideration is adequacy of consideration. Okay, but then another similar term, or it could be synonymous term, okay, adequacy or sufficiency. But when you talk about contract law, especially the topic consideration, adequate and sufficient, there are two different things here. Okay, because different meaning or different context here. Because why? As far as the rule of law is concerned, okay, consideration must be sufficient, okay, but need not be adequate. So if we are referring to general vocabulary, so sufficient means the same lah with adequacy, okay, but for legal terminologies, especially pertaining to consideration, they have two different meanings altogether. Okay, all right. So here, where a party, okay, denies his consent has been freely given, okay, so the court will look at, okay, the court will examine the issue of adequacy or inadequacy here. So the inadequacy of consideration may be taken into account, okay, why? The court will determine, okay, will ascertain whether his consent was freely given. So we are going to look at section 14 together with explanation, explanation 2 to section 26, as well as illustration F and G, okay, in relation to this rule, right? And then part of explanation as well, okay. The law requires, okay, consideration to have some value, okay, some value, so it means it is sufficient, but the court will not investigate, or the court is not bothered, okay, to inquire into its adequacy. Adequacy means reflective of market value. The court is not bothered with that, okay? So where consideration is recognized by the law as having some value, not market value, okay, some value, then it is described as real, or it is sufficient, okay, sufficient consideration, valid consideration. And having said so, the courts will not investigate whatever contracts here, okay, to see if the parties have got equal value. Is it a good buy? Is it a good price or not? The court is not bothered. So long you pay, okay, for that particular things here. I mean, it's not something which is free lah in nature here. Alright, so a nominal consideration, I mean small value, is good consideration, okay, although the value may be very, very little, okay, very, very negligible here. So in the eyes of law, okay, value here, I mean, it's very subjective. So, and it depends on the party, okay, to ascertain, to determine what's the value that they agree, okay, with each other lah here, right? If a thing has value, if the parties attribute value to it. Okay, let's move further. All right, this is all the provisions that I mentioned just now. Okay, section 14, 26, explanation to section 26, as well as illustration F and G. Okay, so we go to explanation K2 to section 26 Contracts Act. Okay, here it is clearly stated, an agreement to which the consent of the promisor is freely given. I mean, it's free consent. So it is not void merely because the consideration is inadequate. That's the term, inadequate. But the inadequacy of consideration may be taken into account. Okay, the court will examine further, okay, in determining the question whether the consent of the promisor was freely given. So it will be relevant to ascertain, is it free consent or not here, okay? Because of the adequacy or inadequacy here. All right, so we have illustration F and G. Okay, let's read F. A agrees to sell a house. Okay, if you notice throughout a Contracts Act, quite a number of illustrations in which it used horse as a subject matter, okay, of the contract. Why is that so? Okay, bearing in mind Contracts Act was drafted in is known as 1950 so drafted earlier on. So those days, I would say horse to equivalent to car lah nowadays. I mean, part of transportation, all right? So that's why here, many illustrations, they use horse lah, okay, as part of the subject matter of the agreement. So A agrees to sell a horse worth 1,000 for 10 ringgit. I mean, the value is 1,000 market value, but he agreed to let go to sell it off at 10 ringgit. So A's consent to the agreement was freely given. I mean, yeah, he's free when he has it is with his free consent to let go at only 10 ringgit. So the agreement is a contract, notwithstanding the inadequacy of the consideration. Because why? Why inadequate here? It doesn't reflect the market value, the true value here. But is it sufficient? Yes, it is sufficient. 10 ringgit is not 0 ringgit. 10 ringgit is something which has some value. Okay, let's compare with G, okay, because now we are looking from the context of free consent. So A agrees to sell our house worth 1,000 for 10 ringgit. Okay, similar. But then for the second situation here, A denies. Later, when the case was brought to the court, A denies that consent to the agreement was freely given. He mean that when I sold at this amount of money, actually it's not my free consent. It's against my consent here. Okay, all right. So in this situation, the inadequacy of the consideration is a fact, okay, which the court should take into account. The court will examine further, okay, in considering whether or not A's consent was freely given. So the court will examine lah. Oh, are you really free, or is your consent vitiated later? Okay, we are going to learn all the vitiating factor. Okay, let's go to some of the cases here. We have the case of Tan Chiu Tu. This is federal court decision, important. Tan Chiu Tu and T Kim Hui. Okay, both Chinese name here, but usually in your exam, you can just put as Tan Chiu Tu lah, the first, plaintiff name. But for Chinese name, you cannot put as Tan only kan, because Tan is very common name macam Muhammad kan. So what Muhammad dia? So Tan, okay, Tan Chiu Tu lah alias. Okay, here federal court decision. Quotation especially. The court really interpret, okay, the meaning of the term here. So federal court said that it must be remembered, okay, that sufficiency of consideration is different, okay, in law lah, alright, from the adequacy of consideration. Although if you were to refer to any dictionary, okay, it may show both words to bear the same meaning. But for legal context, different, especially when it relates to consideration. So in law, the courts will often inquire into the sufficiency, but not the adequacy of consideration. Sufficiency mean here valid or not here. The 10 ringgit, is it valid? Does it have some value? Yes. Okay. So sufficiency in law is synonymous with validity. Okay, in regard to consideration. Okay, let's go to another case. Leading case at common law, very old case, 19th century, Thomas and Thomas. Okay. Here, it involves certain amount of payment, but very, very little amount, okay, £1. So the promise to pay £1 per annum per year, the rent here, was irrelevant to the facts of sufficient to pay for commercial rent. Doesn't matter, even though it doesn't reflect commercial rate lah here, commercial rent here. Because why? Similar to observation by federal court just now, the courts did not consider the issue of adequacy to pay. Of course, £1 is inadequate, but it is sufficient because you pay. It's not FOC. It's not a gift. This is a contract. So you pay certain amount of money, then it is valid. It is sufficient in the eyes of law. What more if it is? It is done with free consent. So the two bullets there just explanation. Okay, a nominal consideration. Okay, £1 is very nominal. Is good consideration, okay, although the value may be very, very slight or negligible, okay, because why? Again, value is essentially very, very subjective lah. It depends on the parties here. How much? What's the value that you agreed among yourself, okay, between the two parties? Alright, and this is the famous for the topic. The full name of the case is Chappell, okay, and Nestle. Chappell was suing Nestle, but this is a case under copyright, but then it also has some connection to consideration lah, sufficiency. Or if you don't want to use the full name or full citation, you can just use in chocolate wrapper case. It relates to this case lah, because we don't have many cases involving chocolate wrapper. So this is the only case I believe, okay, involving chocolate wrapper by Nestle. All right, so in this case, 1959, okay, Nestle, very big company lah, MNC kan, until nowadays. So Nestle, they were running a special offer. So members of the public, their customer, could obtain a music record, okay, how to do it? By sending off 3 wrappers. So they need to collect 3 wrappers from Nestle chocolate bars and plus some money lah. It's like redemption. Okay, you can exchange or you can redeem with music record. Okay, and the issue is relating to copyright because why? The owner was against it lah. Yeah, okay. Copyright to the records was owned by Chappell, the one who brought the suit against Nestle, okay, who claimed that there had been breaches of their copyright. They are against lah the idea kan. As if giving free kan their music record. Alright. And then in relation to consideration, okay, so whether one of the issues, okay, whether the 3 wrappers were part of the consideration. Does it have any value or not here? Okay, can it be equivalent to any money here? All right. Let's move further. So the court held that yes, okay, for this particular context, yes, it is valuable in the eyes of Nestle kan, because it reflects their profit. So they were, okay, the answer was in affirmative, even though, okay, they were thrown away when received lah. Of course lah, later doesn't matter. When you receive the wrapper, then it has value for you, but then you throw it away. Because why? The court look at the objective of the promotion or the scheme here. So the whole object of Nestle selling the record was to increase the sales of their chocolate. Even though it is combination of money and wrapper. So wrapper has value lah actually here. All right. So acquiring and delivering of the wrappers to Nestle has economic value in the eyes of Nestle. All right. And was certainly part of the consideration, valuable consideration. Okay. It is valid lah in the eyes of law. It is equivalent to money. So, and then what more? The court won't interfere with freedom of contract lah here. All right. So the ideas of freedom of contract was at play because the parties, both customers and Nestle should be allowed to determine, okay, for themselves what is a fair bargain. So it's fair to Nestle because it increased their sale, okay, when they run that particular promotion. So yeah, it amounts to breaches of copyright lah eventually. Okay, Nestle cannot say, oh, it's free or whatsoever. It doesn't affect copyright whatsoever. It affects Chappell's copyright. Okay, now the question to all right? So we have 3. So can take turn to answer. Okay, whether something that has sentimental motive or sentimental value, is it valid in the eyes of law? Or in other words, the question is whether sentimental motive is legally recognized. What do you think? Sentimental value. Sometimes kan, one antique things and then you put very high value to it. Can you enforce it later? Is it really, does it really reflect the value that the law would recognize? Nurul, what do you think?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so the answer is no. How about Hajar? Hajar.
Assalamualaikum, Doktor. Okay, when we
cannot
talk
see you.
about okay, sorry. Okay.
Janganlah malu. We are all girls in this class.
Sorry, Doktor. Okay, regarding sentimental value, in my opinion, I believe is valid. In regards of there's something, we're talking about the consideration must be sufficient, not adequate. Sorry, the consideration must be adequate. Is it?
It must be sufficient. Tengok dah sufficient, need not be adequate.
Yes. So,
kalau sentimental value, boleh ke prove it is sufficient? Of course, it's not adequate, but then is it sufficient in the eyes of law?
like you said before, there must be some value on
some
that
value.
item.
Sentimental value tu, whether it has value or not lah kan?
Yes. So for me, it's valid lah in the eyes of law.
Alright. Okay, thank you, Shara. What do you think? Sentimental value, is it recognized in the eyes of law?
No.
No?
I
Why
think
no?
no. Because it depends on the parties actually, whether the parties agreed that thing is valuable to be
them.
part of the contract.
So they need to put on certain value. Certain price to it lah. Economic something which has economic value lah actually here. Alright. Okay, thank you. Okay, actually, if it's purely sentimental motive, okay, usually it's not sufficient lah. Alright, so it does not amount to sufficient consideration. But because why? You must really prove to the court it is something which is capable of expression in economic terms. Is it convertible to economic? Is it real, the price here? Okay. Let's have a look at example of case lah. Okay, so we have very, very old case, 19th century case, White and Bluet. Okay, here White is the executor of the father of Bluet lah. Okay, so Bluet, he was being sued by his father's executor. So father's passed away already. Okay, and then this Bluet son lah, okay, he has some debt with the father. Okay, the recognized debt lah. Okay, here, okay, outstanding debt to his father, and then he didn't want to pay. He claimed that his father had promised to discharge him from the debt, okay, in return of what he do, okay, what did he do so that the father would discharge him from paying here for him. So he said, oh, my father agreed, agreed not for me not to pay the debt because I stopped complaining about property distribution even during the father's lifetime lah. Okay, so the act here is stopping complaint or cessation of complaint lah, cease to complain. But the court held that cessation of complaints alone here, there's no economic value. We cannot really convert into value here. Okay, maybe it has some sentimental value between father and son, but cannot be converted into economic value. Okay, so Blood's father had received no real consideration for the promise. Okay, this is example lah of something which is sentimental between the two parties, but it's not capable of converting into economic expression lah, basically here. Alright, so let's recap. That's why we are not going to go into deep discussion kan. Just rule and then some of the cases, and then this is the recap. Recap for adequacy only. Okay, we haven't finished all. Alright, so here, so long as the consideration has some economic value, again, the emphasis is economic. Okay, economic value. That is value in terms of money, okay, then consideration is sufficient and valid. So the word here is sufficient and not valid. Valid and sufficient, not adequate. It is sufficient, okay, whatever example that you can think of, it is sufficient consideration to pay 10,000 for a new car worth 80,000, doesn't matter, but you must pay a certain amount of money, okay? So such consideration is valid as it is sufficient, it is valid. Although it may not be adequate, it doesn't reflect the true value or the market value. Because why? The courts will not interfere just because it appears that a person had made a bad bargain. Oh, why are you selling at a very low price here? It's not the court's duty to check. Okay, but the court will check the moment there's any issue pertaining to freedom of contract. Then the court will check. The consent, whether the consent is vitiated. If both parties consent to it, and that's it. The court will stop there. The court's approach to the issue of adequacy is by reference to freedom of contract, whether the consent was free or not. If consent is free, then that's it. The court is okay with whatever sufficient value. Okay, another subtopic. Adik pukul 8. Alam. Forbearance to sue, from the word forbear. Okay, F-O-R-B-E-A-R. Forbear means you abstain or you relinquish your rights to sue. Abstain from suing, okay, or relinquish the rights or dispense with the rights. So it involves, okay, another word is forego lah, okay, forbear, forego. So foregoing of the exercise of a legal right. That here, you have the right to sue, but you forbear, you forego your rights to sue. So is it a valid consideration or not? Okay, we are talking about consideration still, okay, here. So, in what way it relates to consideration? Consideration lies in the detriment. You suffer losses lah because you have the right to sue, but you don't want to sue. So it is detriment who has a right to resort to court. Okay. So and then who's benefiting from your act of forbearance to sue here? Corresponding benefit to the other party who is safe from legal proceeding. No need to go to the court lah because why? You forbear your rights to sue. Yeah. Okay. So mean that here, a person who has a valid claim against another, doesn't matter, is it contract law, is it tort law here, but he promises to forbear, okay, from enforcing it. So is it valid in the eyes of law? Yes, it is, okay. That will constitute valid consideration if made in return for a promise by the other to settle the claim. So very specific lah, very specific situation here. You forbear your rights to sue, but the other party must promise to settle the claim. Then is it valid, okay, this arrangement? Yes, it is, okay. You don't really do a service, you don't really pay, but you just forbear your rights to sue. Is it valid? Yes, it is, okay. So in other words, it means it is a compromise of suit. You compromise lah from taking legal suit here, from proceeding with legal suit, okay, and it is may constitute valid consideration in the eyes of law. Okay, we have a case. The same case just now kan, we were discussing HSBC and United Leon, okay, about the loan, cannot pay the loan, and then the directors very fast. Okay, they agreed to, they sign a guarantee, okay, and then later still they cannot pay lah. All right. So in this case, okay, let's have a look at from the perspective of forbearance susu. Okay, for a claim based on forbearance to succeed, okay, it must be proved, okay, by direct evidence. I mean, there must be direct evidence or even by way of inference from the circumstances of the case that guarantor had requested forbearance. Okay, who's the guarantor here? The one who signed the guarantee agreement, the guarantor, okay, requested forbearance, and that forbearance was granted. I mean, there must be a request lah, okay, of forbearance here. I mean, request to forbear, okay, and there must be, I mean, very clearly stated lah, but must be evidence or even by way of inference here. But then, I mean, this is one of the issues raised. But then, in terms of evidence, okay, there was a total failure to prove that the second defendant at any time requested forbearance. I mean, there's no such thing because there's no request pun about forbearance. They try to argue, but the court did not accept. Because why? There's no request to forbear the legal suit here. So still lah, they fail in their suit. Okay, this is one of the defenses or the argument. Okay, we have another case. Just now High Court. Okay, another case. This is by Federal Court. The same case kan tadi just now. Alright. We haven't discussed the facts, but the court were, the federal court make some explanation about adequacy kan just now. Now it's about forbearance lah. Okay. Tan Chiu Tu and T Kim Kueh federal court decision. It involved a single piece of land, but it happened even nowadays. Okay, but there were two grant, two IDT, two documents of title lah, but only one single piece of land. So respondent was issued with a IDT, document of title, registered in September 1968. And 4 years after, okay, appellant was issued with another document of title registered in December 1972. I mean, the gap here is 4 years apart lah. Okay, why it happened? It happened. I mean, those days maybe system was not so modern, okay, or complex, but even nowadays it still happening. Okay, respondent issued a writ. Okay, what is a writ? A writ is the court's order kind or written a form of written command in the name of a court or other legal authority to act. I mean the order from the court lah, a writ here. Okay, against the appellant. So he was claiming vacant possession and damages for loss of income lah. I mean they were fighting over the same piece of a land in which both argued they were the owner. Okay. And the trial judge, because this is federal court kan, so lower court decision, respondent's claim on account that his title prevail over that of the appellant as it was registered earlier. I mean, who got the earlier registration, then that one is prevail lah, better claim kan. I mean, you should be the owner here. And then the one which is related to our discussion here, there was a written compromise agreement, okay, between the parties, but the court held that, well, this is something which is invalid. I mean, it doesn't fulfill the required condition lah here, okay. I mean, there's an attempt to produce, okay, the agreement as part of their defense. Okay, let's go to federal court decision. Okay, the court the court really examined the document here. Okay, the court said, well, the compromise between the parties here on through construction, interpretation, the meaning of the term here, well, this is a compromise of the dispute between the parties in respect of the land. Because by right, they can sue one another lah kan, because they were fighting over the ownership of the land, who has better rights or better title here. And again, the court said, well, in respect of compromise agreement here, okay, I mean, one party forbear to sue the other. So what the court will do, the courts will often inquire into sufficiency, sufficient or not between them, okay? But the court is not bothered with adequacy of the consideration now here. So sufficiency in law is synonymous with validity, okay? And then here, the court will have to see, does it involve promise to refrain or forbear from litigating lah? Okay, and then there must be a single promise from the other party to give up a bit or part of that which their party claims. I mean, do you agree to let go your rights here and you forbear from bringing the case to the court lah? Okay, that one should be the content of compromise of the compromise agreement or compromise between the parties here. So the court will look at the nature of the compromise agreement and see whether is it sufficient or not here. I mean, the court lay down or make it clear about the rule pertaining to forbearance to sue. So this is the thing which must be contained lah in the agreement between the parties here. Alright, so for this is some of the cases for your reading, okay? Because usually for sometimes I ask students to do case review or even case presentation kan, but for our presentation I have given specific topic kan, so I mean you are not going to do case review. So this is some of the cases which could be relevant. We have the case of Chong Hin Trading by Court of Appeal. This is relating to past consideration. We have Supreme Court decision 1987. It's about forbearance susu, okay, Osman bin Abdul Ghani. We also have another very recent case, 2022. This is on adequacy. SimCity ET venture lah. I mean, lots of issues involved, but if you refer to page 15 to 16, so the court actually discuss about adequacy, okay, which is relevant for our topic tonight lah. Alright, let's move further. So it's already 8:10. Okay, simple. So this is simple discussion. Performance of existing duty, and after this, public duty. Okay, what if under the contract, okay, you are supposed to perform, I mean, everything is spelled out in the contract. And later, there comes promise to pay, okay, for whatever things that you are obliged to do already. Possible or not? Can you enforce the promise to pay later? It's like double payment lah. I mean, under the contract, you have to do this. And then there comes another promise, okay, agreement, oh, we'll pay you, whereas you are already obliged under the contract, okay? So if someone promises to do something, they are already bound to do under a contract, usually it's not a valid consideration. I mean, it's like double thing, whereas it's only one, I mean, obligation to do and then promise to pay. So in other words here, performance of existing contractual duties cannot be a good consideration to pay extra under the same. I mean, you are just receiving the normal payment, but not the extra payment, which is a promise made later lah, at a later stage. Okay, that's basically the rule. But we have also exception to the rule. Okay, so this is the case to illustrate the rule just now, okay, general rule. The case is Stick and Myrick, very, very old case, 1809. Here, take note of the number. Okay, it involves sailors lah. They have to make sure the ship can sail back to the port. So they have 11 sailors, but 2 of them, okay, deserted a ship. I mean, they have lesser manpower lah, okay, to handle the ship here, to man the ship. So because of that, okay, the captain promised to pay the remaining crew extra money if they sail the ship back. Okay, I mean, to make sure that the ship will arrive at the port safely. But later, the captain just ignore the promise. The captain didn't want to pay. Okay, later refused to pay. And the sailor sued the captain lah, asking for extra payment kan. Why did you promise? And then we did our job and then we didn't pay. So the court held that all the sailors, okay, or whoever the remaining sailors here, okay, were already bound by their contract to sail back, and clearly stated in their contract, okay, to meet such emergencies of the voyage, okay, promising to sail back. I mean, whatever promised by the captain, okay, was not a valid consideration. So there's no need for the captain to pay extra money. It sound unfair kan? But the court just look at the actual contract. Does it include the promise by the captain just now? Okay. Yes. I mean, the sailor, they must make sure that the ship can be sailed back, can arrive in the port whatsoever to meet all the emergencies. Okay. Compare with another case. Similar but different. Okay. Just now 1809 kan? Okay. 50 years later, 1857. Okay. The case name is Hartley and Person B. Here, just now 2 out of 11. Now, 19 out of 36. I mean, even bigger number. Deserted the ship lah. Okay. Of a ship deserted. Okay. Now, the captain make a similar promise lah. Okay. Captain promised to pay remaining crew, very, very small number. Okay. Extra money to sail back. And again, the captain refused to pay lah because the captain said, well, you are being paid your salary. So, I don't want to pay you extra. Despite that, I promise you lah. All the sweet promises here. But in this case, the court give different judgment. I mean, yes, the sailor can, the remaining sailor can claim. Because why? For this particular case, okay, the ship was so seriously undermanned. I mean, lacks of manpower, terribly, very, very desperate. Okay, that the rest of the journey had become extremely hazardous. For I mean, yeah, if you were to compare with steel and myrick just now, I mean, still not easy to man the ship, but then not really extremely hazardous lah. Okay, so and the court also observed that sailing the ship back in such dangerous conditions was over and above their normal duties. It's not incorporated in their contract. So it discharged the sailors from their existing contract and left them free to enter into a new contract for the rest of the voyage. So promised by the captain is actually a fresh contract because different scenario altogether lah. All right. So because of that, they were entitled to the money. So this is all. I mean, new contract, of course, they don't sign the contract, but by way of inference, okay, verbal lah, verbal contract, verbal promise, and then can still enforce, can still claim. So that's basically the difference between stick and myrick just now. All right, what's the current situation? Okay, what's the latest position? I mean, do we have any case law on this? Because whenever it involves contractual duty kan, some people, they love to make all the promises, okay, extra or sweet promises to ensure contract is being performed kan, to ensure, oh, it's completed. So they promise lah, apa, promise bulan bintang whatsoever, and that, oh, contract is completed, then they don't want to pay. All right. Okay, let's have a look. So the principle set out in steel and myrick just now, okay, was now amended. This is the latest one by the case Williams and Roffey. Bros is brothers, okay, that's how we pronounce it. So Williams and Roffey brothers, 1990, Roffey Brothers Limited, 1990. Okay, what's the rule that we learn or we derive from this case? If the performance of existing contractual duty, does it confer practical benefit on the other party, okay, to the one who made the promise? So if yes, if the answer is in affirmative, this can constitute a valid consideration. I mean, we can infer, oh, that's a fresh contract. Because why? You receive some extra practical benefit. So as if there's a new contract lah, actually, okay, on top of the existing obligation. I mean, it is fair in that sense, actually. Okay, let's have a look at what happened in Williams and Roffey here. So Rafi, this is about a refurbish, the contract to refurbish certain building. So Rafi had a contract to refurbish a block of flats, and then he had subcontracted the carpentry work to Williams. Okay, I mean the promise by Rafi, and William is the plaintiff lah. Okay, so after the work had begun, okay, it became apparent that Williams had underestimated the cost. I mean the money, William needs more money lah. I mean the cost has gone up of the work, and he was having financial difficulties. I mean, cannot meet up lah the whatever expenses here. So Rafi, he want to make sure the job was done on time. Remember, he subcontract the work kan? Okay, he's the contractor, but he asked other contractors to do it. So Rafi concerned that the work would not be completed on time. And then if not, I mean, if cannot complete on time, he need to pay penalty kan? Usually penalty lah. Every single day of delayed completion, need to pay penalty. All right. So Rafi is like to motivate lah subcontractor kan. So he agreed to pay Williams extra payment per flat. Okay, make sure you finish it and I'll pay you extra. That's the promise by Rafi towards William. Of course lah, promise, and then he doesn't want to keep the promise. Okay, so Williams completed the work, okay, on more flats, but did not receive full payment. No payment lah. Okay, all right. Because of that, he stopped work and he brought an action for damages lah. So he was suing Rafi, okay. And then in the court of appeal, Rafi argued that, well, whatever William was doing, actually, this is part of your job. You have to complete it, okay? Contractually bound to do, and no consideration lah after all. I mean, you are just doing whatever thing that you have, you have a promise under the contract, okay? All right, so how the court decide the case here? So the rule in the first box there, okay, where a party to an existing contract later agrees to pay extra, whatever lah, bonus or allowance here, in order to ensure that the other party perform his obligation. So agreement is binding, okay, because why? You have obtained some new practical advantage, okay, and you avoid from being imposed with penalty. All right. So in the present case here, what's the benefit that Rafi has received here? First, making sure Williams continue his work because William was in difficulty kan, but because of the promise to pay extra, William continue his work. And then Rofi also avoiding payment under damages lah, damage clause here of the main contract if William was late, and then avoiding the expense and trouble of getting someone else lah, new subcontractor kan, if William was going to stop. Alright, so because of these three benefit here, William was entitled to payment, all the practical benefit by Rofi. So bio inference as if there was fresh contract lah actually, okay, on top of existing contract. I mean, if it's fairer in that sense. Okay, so what's the position in Malaysia? So this is very quite recent, okay, but still under MLJU lah, MLJ unreported. The case name is Grand Step Development and Tan Chong Heng. Okay, here, basically we follow because why the court make reference to Williams and Rofi kan, nampak the last part of the judgment. So this is quotation. Okay, we just focus on the one which is in not really red but then macam brown kan, the font here. So prima facie the given consideration appear to be performance of an existing obligation already assumed, okay, by the plaintiff under the contract, as well as past consideration which may not be good and sufficient consideration. But then here the court will see whether does it have any benefit, okay, on the part of the party which promised lah here. That's why the court cross refer to Williams and Rofi brothers is now. Okay, the court apply the similar ruling lah basically here. Right? It's about guarantee agreement here, involving contractor as well. All right, another simple discussion, public duty. So mean that here, whenever you see the word public, so it involve civil servant or kaki tangan kerajaan lah, doesn't matter federal or state government, doesn't matter lah. Okay, I mean they are meant to serve public. Salary is being paid from taxpayers' money. That's why kan. I mean, you are there to serve wholeheartedly, serving public interest lah. Alright, so if someone is under a public duty, the word public duty, to do a particular task, okay, then agreeing to do that task is not sufficient consideration for a contract. I mean, you are supposed to provide treatment to all the patient, doctor kan. Okay, here, GH punya doctor. And then patient say, oh, I'll pay you extra, doctor, I'm so happy with you. And later patient doesn't pay. So can doctor sue the patient for the extra payment? Cannot. Okay, because why? Doctor is being paid salary already kan? Alright, so that's basically the principle lah. Okay, so this is the that we derive from this case. Okay, Collins and Godfroy. Here, Godfroy promised to pay Collins, okay, if Collins would attend court and give evidence for Godfroy. I mean, attending court tu part of your duty kan, actually, legal duty. So Collins had been served with subpoena, okay, subpoena is court order lah, that you need to attend the court trial or proceeding here. So now Collins sued for payment lah, because he was being promised to pay kan, payment. So now the court held that Colin, I mean, when you receive subpoena, you are legally bound to attend. Doesn't matter whether there's any promise to pay or not here. Collins was under a legal duty to attend a court, so no consideration actually here. Okay, you are under duty already, legal duty. So you fail to claim for the promise. I mean, the court look at the nature of the, I mean, what's the consideration here? Public duty, I mean, legal duty to attend the court kan, cannot ask lah for payment. Okay, but then there's qualification or there's exception to the rule just now. Okay, if someone, I mean, if the public servant exceeds their public duty, then this it's not must, may be valid consideration. It depends on the situation. It may or it may not, but it may lah. There's possibility. It's still possible to argue or possible to claim lah. The example here, this involve police. So police memang public servant kan? Okay, here. So Glassbook Brothers and Glamorgan County Council. So in this case, the police were under a duty to protect coal mine during a strike. So there was a strike lah. Okay, so they have to make sure everything was safe. And then the police proposed mobile units, whereas actually they are not really bound to propose the units, and it will incur cost lah. Okay, if you were to provide mobile units, I mean extra team lah actually to handle the situation of strike here. So because of that, mine owner was happy. Oh, okay lah. So mine will be safe here. So mine owner promised to pay for police to be stationed on the premises. All right. So the police comply with this request, but later they wanted to claim for the money, okay, as promised by the mine owner, but mine owner doesn't want to pay. Okay, because everything is done to completed, tak nak, they don't want to pay. After all, oh, you receive your salary pun, you are police kan, so why must I pay you extra? So the mine owner refused to pay because they argued that police had simply carried out their public duty. I mean, you're supposed to take care, okay? You're supposed to ensure the safety here. Alright, but the court held that, yes, okay, you are right. But then, although the police were bound to provide protection, but they had a discretion as to the form it should take. It depends whether had they exceeded their normal duty or not here. They might be incurring expenses here. So as they believe mobile unit was sufficient, mobile police was sufficient, okay, when they proposed some other modes of protection here, okay, they had acted over their normal duties. So whatever extra protection by the police here is a good consideration for the promise, okay, by the mine owner to pay for it. So police were entitled to payment. Do you think we are we are adopting similar rule here in Malaysia? Can the police ask for extra payment if they provide extra protection? Boleh ke? I mean, we have some limitation, I think. Okay, we have something which is statutory in nature. I mean, the expression cannot simply ask, even though they provide extra protection, I think. Here, this is at common law, and this is a very old case. Okay, nowadays, I think everything is spelled out under certain statute, kan? All the I mean, the way that the police discharge their duty, whether they can ask for money, because it could be misuse of power, kan, especially in Malaysia. So the court are so cautious lah. But generally, this is the rule. Okay, but in Malaysia, it is being, I mean, in terms of, it is in terms of implementation, we have statutes lah, okay, to qualify for the rule here. All right. So similar to this, but here it doesn't involve civil servant, but it's about duty, legal duty. Okay, here. So similar approach by the court in the case of Watt and Byham. A mother was under a statutory duty to look after her child. I mean, the mother need to look after your child, okay? You cannot ask for payment because by right, you are the biological mother, okay? You need to provide, care for your child. So the ex-husband promised to pay her £1, okay, a week. Okay, £1 pun setinggi. Okay, the husband here, if she cared for the child in a certain way. But the court held that notwithstanding the statutory duty imposed on the mother, but she could enforce the promise. I mean, can compel the ex-husband to pay because why? She she has provided something which is more beyond the normal duty of a mother. Maybe whatever extra care lah here. Okay, so can still ask for the payment because this is something which is exceed the duty of a normal mother towards the child, can ask for payment. Here it doesn't involve civil servant, but it involve legal duty or statutory duty lah. Okay, mother is or parent is obliged to look after the child. Okay, all right. Question. Okay, this is actually to discuss another subtopic, but we start with the question. So all the three must respond. Okay. All right. Question. We are talking about debt lah. Okay, loan here. So in cases of a debt, for example, we put the loan as 10K. Okay, usually pinjam 100 kan. Here pinjam 10,000. Okay, banyak sikit. Alright, no need dalam sehari. So here, if the creditor promises or agrees to accept partial payment of the total loan. For example, okay lah, you pay me 6K. So I'm okay, satisfied, okay, for the total loan of 10K. But later, creditor say, oh, I still want to claim the 4K. 4K is a lot. So change his mind and reverse claim for the remaining outstanding loan, 4K lah. Alright, so the question is that allowed under the law? Can he claim for the balance? That's the question. Syarah? You are the creditor. Can you claim or not the 4K? Initially, you say, okay lah, 6K, I'm okay. Asalkan you bayar. But later, oh, 4K, I still want to claim. Because after all, the loan is for 10K. Can you claim or not?
Cannot.
Cannot. Cannot to cannot.
Tak boleh, tak boleh.
Tak boleh. I mean, 6K is sufficient. And
Yeah.
you are being prevented from claiming lah kiranya.
Yeah.
Okay. How about Nurul? Agree with Syarah?
I think
Can or cannot? Not fair lah
if
kan? I mean 4K is a lot. You want to claim for the 4K. The loan
if
is
there
for
is
10K.
no black and white, dia boleh claim.
Black and white pula. Remember, verbal promise is as good as the one in black and white. I mean, you boleh agree, okay lah, 6K pun asalkan you bayar, alright, I'm okay with it. I won't be claiming. But later, still he want to claim, kan? 4K is a lot. After all, the loan is for 10K. Can or not?
I think cannot.
Cannot. Okay, sama dengan Syarah. Hajar,
Yeah,
agree
sama.
or not? Cannot. I mean, you bagi loan 10K to me, and then I cakap, okay, I bayar 6K je. Take it or leave it. Kalau tak, I tak nak bayar at all. 6K. I bayar you 6K, but later you say, oh, tak lah, you nak still claim for 4K. Can or not?
I believe can,
Can.
because
Boleh.
if it can,
Can.
because if it may known to the borrower, and the borrower consent to that as well 4K. After all, memang the loan is actually 10K, right?
But you promised to accept 6K tadi. Kenapa tukar fikiran? Cannot simply change your mind. Kesian I dah bayar 6K, tengok you minta lagi 4K. If I know, I
But
won't pay at all.
Doctor, I believe that this fact tak mention pasal, currently the borrower did not agree or not.
Agree lah tu kan, dia agree lah tu. Lepas tu dia change mind. Because dia kata, oh asalnya loan 10K, kenapa I cannot, why I must be prevented from claiming? What do you think? Which one is fairer? I mean, in terms of, in the eyes, for the purpose of upholding justice, should we prevent the borrower from claiming this 4K? Then the debtor will be in the advantageous position. Lah kan kiranya, oh bayar 6K, then that's it. Untung dah 4K.
If I become a borrower, I will say that it's not fair for me, because the creditor already promised just to claim for 6K, right? But if we talk about the creditor, because the loan itself is 10K, so regardless of the first one,
there must be a rule of law kan, clear rule of law on this lah. Remember, law, I mean, justice needs to be done. I mean, it seems to be done, but from whose perspective? Kiranya kan, one party will say, oh, not fair to me, but the other will say, oh, it's fair, the rule is fair. Isn't it? Okay, let's have a look. What's the rule actually for this particular scenario or situation? We have a clear-cut rule on this actually. All right. So this rule is known as accord and satisfaction. Ataupun the simpler term would be part payment of a debt. Okay, you don't pay your debt in full, but you just part pay of it. Doesn't matter, 10% or even 90%, you part pay. Okay, partial of payment of a debt here. All right, what's the rule here? So we have a look. I mean, we start with common law rule first. So if one party owes a sum of money to another, and he agrees to pay part of this in full settlement, okay? So the rule at common law, or we take it from penal case lah, okay, here, part payment of a debt is not good consideration for a promise to forego the balance. So, meaning that here, initially the rule is that you can still claim. Because why? You part pay, then it's not good consideration. I mean, it doesn't settle the whole loan. That's the initial rule, or that's the general rule. Remember, it has to be balanced. Okay, so we have some exception or qualification for the rule here. This is an example of the illustration. Okay, if A owes B 500 pound and B accepts part of it, okay, half, give 250 in full satisfaction on the due date. I mean, it's exactly the date lah. The date as promised earlier. There is nothing to prevent B from claiming the balance at a later date. Because why? No consideration proceeding from A to enforce the promise of B to accept part payment. I mean, it's beyond the whatever agreement that they have agreed earlier. Okay, because why? This is because he is already bound to pay the full payment. So agreement based on the same principle, I mean, is the same like still MIRIC lah. Okay, here. And then why the rule is such a way? It protects a creditor from economic duress of the debtor. Kan, debtor might be using this weapon, or you accept, or I don't pay at all. So it's like duress lah, okay, on the part of the debtor towards creditor. Usually even in reality pun, creditor kena mengemis kan. I mean asking for your money back lah basically. So the debtor macam slightly in superior position. You accept. If not, I don't pay at all. Like that lah. Okay, this is economic duress. Okay, that's the rule. But then we have qualification for the rule here. Okay, we go to the facts dulu. I think we have enough time. Okay, this is 1602 case lah. Apa 1600 punya case, 17th century case. Here in this case, Mr. Cole, okay, all owed penal. I mean the money sekejap. The money, okay, this amount lah 850 and it was due on 11 November. And then at penal's request, okay, Cole paid part of the payment. I mean part of the money 511, okay, instead of 850 on earlier date, 1st October. So penal said, okay, I accept because you pay me early, so I accept as full settlement. I mean no more payment lah. Alright, considered done, considered zero already. Okay, no outstanding amount. But later penal change mind. Okay, because there's still something outstanding kan. So penal suit court for the amount owed lah. Okay, but the court held that part payment was not good, was not consideration. So but then the court make some qualification or some exception here. Agreement to accept part payment would be binding, is okay, it will be valid if the data at the creditor's request provided some fresh consideration to justify why part payment should be valid here. Example. Okay, so consideration might be provided if the creditor agrees to accept, I mean upon the consent by creditor lah, obviously. Okay, first part payment of an earlier date. I mean similar to Cole Pinol's case just now lah, earlier kan, he paid earlier. So bagus lah actually, alright here. As in Pinol's case itself, or chattel instead of money. I mean you don't pay with money but you pay with something which is more valuable. You pay using horse, or using hawk, or using rope. Those days kan, kiranya whatever things lah. I think nowadays maybe you pay using gold bar, for example, using jewelries, which is more valuable. Okay, or part payment in different place to that originally specified, maybe closer or maybe at your place. So you have some advantage lah. So it amounts to something which is fresh consideration. So part payment justify because there is fresh consideration, right? So it is valid in that sense. Tapi let's say you still pay on the due date and then you still pay with money, you still pay in the place as promised earlier. So there's no fresh consideration. So in that situation, part payment is not good consideration. I mean, the creditor can still ask for the remaining, like that. Okay, that's the rule. But this is at common law. Okay, we haven't come back to Malaysia. We are still in England. Okay, so what's the latest position? Not really latest lah. What the later position? So it is still representing the law, okay, in the case of Fox and Beer lah, okay, 1884, because just now 17th century. In 19th century, it is still a good law, okay, between Fox and Beer here. Beer tu Mrs. Beer tau, Mrs. Okay, nama orang lah Beer, kan macam kita nama apa, nama minuman, okay, Beer. So Mrs. Beer, she had obtained judgment for a debt against Dr. Fox, who subsequently asked for time to pay. So Mrs. Beer was the creditor lah. Dr. Fox is the debtor. Dr. Fox borrowed money from Mrs. Beer. Okay, and Mrs. Beer, I mean Dr. Fox ni maybe doesn't have enough money lah to pay, alright? So Mrs. Beer, she agreed that she would take no further action in the matter, provided that Dr. Fox paid 500 immediately. And then rest, the remaining by half yearly installment. I mean, they make certain arrangement lah with regards to the payment here. And then Dr. Fox duly kept his side of the agreement. I mean, he did lah. Alright, he kept the promise. But judgment debts, however, carry interest. I mean, you postpone the payment, deferred payment here, you need to pay interest lah kan. I mean, it carries interest. Lambat bayar, then interest naik lah basically. Lagi, you need to pay extra actually, to cover the interest here. So House of Lords held that Mrs. Beer was entitled to the interest. Tengok interest dia 360 interest. Banyak kan. Whereas the loan to be paid 500 and then 150 lah installment. Okay. Because why? In this case, Dr. Fox had not bought her promise to take no further action on the judgment. So he had not provided any consideration. I mean, 360 here, you need to pay. it doesn't represent, I mean, it doesn't mean that it is a fresh consideration lah here. I mean, you need to pay. Okay, that's what the court said in Foods and Beer. Alright, okay, now let's come back to Malaysia. We have 20 minutes left. Okay, what's the position in Malaysia? So basically, under Contracts Act 1950, position is quite clear. Okay, payment of a lesser sum, okay, is good consideration. Boleh. I mean, yeah, it is good. So if you were to answer the question just now, you bayar sikit, then is it okay? You cannot really claim later. Yes, you cannot claim later. Okay, so in Malaysia, it is recognized lah. How do we know? From which section? So we have section 64, okay, and we have illustration B here. So what's the rule? I mean, of course lah, it relates to debt kan here, okay, loan or debt here. Debt is discharged by accord and satisfaction. What's the meaning of accord and satisfaction here? Accord refers to agreement, okay, and then satisfaction refers to consideration. So they are recognized, okay, under Malaysian law. Here. So every promisee may dispense with or remit wholly or in part lah, okay, performance of the promise made to him. Or he has the right to extend the time for such performance. Or he may accept, okay, the last part, he may accept instead of it any satisfaction which he thinks fit. I mean, he cannot really revert to earlier promise lah because he has agreed, okay, to accept. Yeah, example here. Example B, okay, illustration B, A owes B 5,000 and A pays to B and B accepts in satisfaction of the whole debt 2,000 je, okay, paid at the time and place at which the 5,000 were payable. I mean, there's nothing fresh. Okay, I mean, sama, the time is the same, the place is the same. So what's the status of the debt, of the 5,000 debt here? The whole debt is discharged. I mean, our law is very clear and it doesn't even require fresh consideration pun, provided both parties must agree to it lah. So creditor cannot later change his mind. He cannot claim lah later because you agree to accept. I mean, may accept instead of any satisfaction which he thinks fit. And cannot say, oh, may claim later. Cannot claim lah later. I mean, you are satisfied with this 2,000 as full payment for 5,000 and that's it. I mean, it's considered as discharge, the full discharge of the whole performance, okay, on the part of the debtor towards the creditor. So we have this case in which it clearly states, kan, like I mentioned just now, our law is very clear. So that's why it is stated here in Associated Pen Malaysia. This is Supreme Court decision, okay. Section 64 represents a departure. So most of the time we adopt, we follow. But on this point, we depart from common law. Because why? For Malaysian law, neither consideration nor agreement is necessary. So long the party agree to it lah. Okay, accord and satisfaction. I mean, no need to provide fresh consideration. Okay, it is okay. Okay, we depart from common law lah. We depart from penal and coal just now. Okay, we depart from Foods and Beer. Okay, another question to all. Yeah, nak tanya, Hajar.
Doctor, sorry. Doctor, can I say that Section 64 of the Contract Act 1950, it regards the discretion of the promisee, i.e., if they say the lender. So if the lender said that I want the borrower to pay full, so the borrower need to pay full. Right. So yes. It's more for me, my understanding is this particular section is more on the discretion of the creditor. Is it true?
But it must involve part payment. Dia very specific situation. About loan lah, about money je. Benda lain tak boleh.
Oh, okay.
Because even example pun tadi duit kan, tadi example 5,000 bayar 2,000, tak boleh claim dah 3,000 because you dah dispense with, you dah let go your rights to claim. Kiranya macam you dah vary lah the terms here and both parties agreed to it, especially creditor kan, let go your rights. So, tak boleh lah nak revert balik lepas tu because you have agreed. Kenapa nak tukar-tukar ni kan? You agree cakap okay lah, bayar sikit je, I okay. Lepas tu bayar semua, tak boleh lah, as if ada agreement lagi lah, later fresh agreement.
Okay, alright, doctor.
Debtor will agree, obviously. Creditor yang kena agree. Okay, and I mean it's free consent of the creditor. Cannot lah, debtor cannot threaten ke, cannot duress, cannot force, cannot compel. Yeah, creditor yang setuju. Okay, and creditor cannot later change his promise lah. Nampak tak? I mean it is fair in that sense. I mean you must have a stand if you agree to accept part payment, and that's it lah. I mean you let go your rights already. Cannot later pergi minta lagi. Lepas tadi cakap dah terima kan? Tak boleh lah. It's like that. Okay, it's very clear. Okay, soalan. Last question for tonight. Ada lagi 15 minutes lah. What if the lesser payment just now, okay, the part payment is done or settled by third party? Kiranya orang lain tolong bayar, third party, instead of the debtor himself. Is it recognized in the eyes of law, or can creditor still ask the payment from actual debtor instead of third party? Hajar, jawab dulu. Boleh ke third party tolong bayar?
Sorry doktor, I think can.
Kawan you kaya, dia tolong bayarkan. Tapi kreditor cakap, tak boleh, I nak minta juga dengan debtor tu. Ada dapat payment pun from your friend, for example.
I think can doktor.
Can Syarah, macam mana Syarah? Can or cannot? Third party tolong bayar.
Third party can settle the payment.
So creditor cannot ask from the debtor lah anymore.
Yes.
Nurul?
Yes, the party can pay for the debtor.
Okay, let's have a look. What is the... Alright, yes, the answer is yes. Okay, it will discharge the whole debt of a debtor. Okay, two example from Resolution C lah. Alright. I mean, it's totally about the loan lah, money payment kan, because we have lots of agreement or contract pertaining to loan. So A owes B 5,000, and then B, A cannot pay lah, and C is a friend of A or agent or whatsoever, okay, relative of A. So C pays to B 1,000. Bayar sikit lah, bukan bayar 5,000 pun, okay, pay 1,000. And B was so desperate, okay, B accepts 1,000 in satisfaction of his claim on A. Kiranya dia agree, okay, I terima ni dan I tak boleh claim lah dengan A, whatever remaining amount here. So this payment by C towards B, okay, alright, discharge the whole claim, the whole debt. But again, there must be no element of duress ke or compulsion ke, force ke. I mean, here B free consent lah, accept. Okay, B really needs the money 1,000 and B agree, okay, I won't be claiming from B. So kiranya C tu make payment on behalf of B lah here. Alright, so we have a case in which it fits into this illustration. Alright, Kirpa Singh and Bariam Singh, both involve Singh here, 1966 federal court decision. Let's have a look at the facts here. Alright. So this is an appeal case here. All right, and then okay, trial court allowed the application of the respondent. Respondent was the debtor, okay, to set aside bankruptcy notice taken out by the appellant creditor against him and one other person lah. Okay, what's the ground here? Judgment that had been satisfied by the tender or by a third party of a check. I mean, payment has been done by a check lah. So there's no right of the creditor to ask for bankruptcy notice against the debtor. Debtor cannot pay the debt kan. So now creditor say, oh, you are bankrupt lah. I mean, I'm going to serve you with bankruptcy notice. But third party made a check. I mean, made payment by check. But of course, smaller amount lah, obviously. And this creditor dah accept pun. But then say, no. I mean, still, it doesn't settle my loan. That's why I'm serving this bankruptcy notice on the debtor. Okay, so in this case, the check was accepted and cashed by creditor. I mean, the act of cashing the check amounted to acceptance here. Alright, so the court applies section 64, okay, and the court again reiterate the fact that yes, our law is different, okay, it materially alters the English doctrine of accord and satisfaction here, okay. So on the face of the case here, it's very clear, okay, third party made an offer, okay, and it comes with the conditions lah. So when the check comes with the conditions, it's either you accept or you reject, okay, here. Under this condition, the creditor could either, I mean, when he received the check here, he need to return the money to the offeror, or if you retain the check, it will discharge the debtor's liability. So the creditor was so in need of the money, so he go and cash the check, he returned the money, But then later he's still chasing the actual debtor lah to pay here. Alright, basically the effect of his act here, it discharge the debtor from any further liability. No more liability to pay actually, despite that the check is in a smaller amount lah, obviously. Right, the moment you accept the check, so you accept all the conditions attached to the check here. Okay, you agree to cash it out. It means, oh, you agree to accept the part payment smaller amount lah to release the debtor from the liability to pay. Alright. So if you don't want to accept, you need to return the check. Okay, the acts of cashing out the check, it means you accept lah the conditions. So too bad lah. I mean, cannot claim. Okay. And then, okay, whether the act of the promisee dispense with the performance of the promise made to him by the promisor, the act. Okay, now the focus is on the act. So again, we have another case by federal court decision, Pan Arba and Nanyang Construction here. Sekejap, panjang pula. Ada letih ni. Dah almost 9 kan. Biasanya we started with, panjang. Oh, panjangnya case ni. I cannot remember that I put so lots of thing about this case. And this is the last part of the lecture. Tapi macam tak sempat habis dah. Okay, for tonight. Okay, last case for tonight. Last part tu, you read on your own, and then if you have any question, then you can just ask. Okay, I mean it's quite straightforward. Okay, all the assumptions here. Okay, it comes with all the cases lah to show the application. Okay, last case for tonight. Pan Ahba and Nanyang Construction. What happened here? It involve, okay, this is involve a deceased lah. So we have administrator of the estate of the deceased. Administrator whenever the deceased died without having a will. So we need to appoint administrator. Okay, instead of executor. Kalau executor just execute the will. Administrator kena administer lah all the deceased property. Okay, so now they claim for the return of this amount 10,000. Okay, and this amount of money had been deposited by the deceased. Okay, with the company of housing estate. I mean, the deceased was about to buy a house lah actually. So he paid the deposit here. Okay. So the deceased during her lifetime, she executed a printed document. So she confirmed that she wanted to buy the house lah. Okay. 3-story shop houses, and that's the amount of money. I mean, that's the price, 88,000. But the deposit was 10,000 lah. So she paid the deposit and she executed the document. But still, it is not completed yet actually. Okay. Alright, but the deceased later had a change of mind. She doesn't want to proceed. So she failed to sign a formal agreement. Okay, and then the lawyers of the company has asked her lah, okay, repeated requests from the defendant. I mean, come and sign, but no signing because he didn't want to proceed pun. Alright. And then later, 20th August 1964, the company, the housing company, informed that, macam threaten here, okay, if you fail to sign this document, this agreement, okay, within 7 days, will sell this property to other purchaser. This piece of letter is very, very important. Okay. So later, later, the deceased wrote to the defendant company and requested it to sell the property. I mean, okay lah, since you say, oh, you are going to sell the property to other buyer, it's okay. Okay, I'm okay with it, and please return my deposit, because she doesn't want to buy pun anymore. Alright, so she was so happy lah when she received the letter from the housing company saying that, okay, you don't want to sign, you fail to sign, we are going to sell this property to other buyer. Okay. Alright, and then what happened next? So after 3 months, okay, the company wrote again. Kiranya, I believe it's very hard to sell to other buyer lah. That's why the company keep on asking her to come and sign. Okay. At the same time, keep on saying, okay, last chance je. Okay, last chance je. Come. Okay, I'm giving you last chance, like that lah. Okay. And then again, keep on saying, okay, if you don't sign, transaction will be cancelled, and we are going to forfeit your deposit. I mean, we're not going to return your deposit, but we are going to forfeit the deposit, and we are going to sell the property to other buyer. Okay. Alright. So now, plaintiff sued the defendant company, plaintiff administrator. I mean, later, the buyer died, okay? and the agreement is not completed lah, but the deposit has been paid. That's why administrator was asking for the refund of the 10,000. Okay, all the property or money belong to the deceased kan. Alright. So plaintiff sued the defendant company, administrator of the deceased sued the housing company for the return of the deposit. Okay, what's the basis here? Defendant company had rescinded the agreement by informing the deceased that it would sell the property to other purchaser. Kiranya, oh, you dah cakap tak payah nak perform. Okay, I mean, you are going to sell it to other buyer. So as if that's it. Okay, it discharge the obligation on the part of the deceased here. So now the issue, okay, in relation to our discussion, whether the defendant, the company, okay, by the letter just now, okay, had dispensed with the performance of the promise made to it by the deceased. I mean, does it actually revoke the whole thing here? Dispense with the performance. Okay, discharge the obligation here. So the court held that under section 64, okay, it says that every promisee, so in this case, promisee is the housing company, okay, because promisor to pay is the deceased, okay, may dispense with or remit wholly or in part the performance of the promise made to him. Kiranya the company has the right, okay, to say, oh, you don't have to perform your whatever promise lah. You don't have to proceed with the pay because you are going to sell it to other buyer, right? So basically, the deposit needs to be returned lah. Okay. So the company had dispensed her from performing her part of the contract. So now the deceased is entitled to the return of the deposit. So 10K tu cannot forfeit lah, because why? You are the one who say, oh, we are going to sell it to another buyer. I mean, you dispense the performance, okay, on the part of the deceased under the contract. And that's it for tonight. It's already 8:55. Okay, the last part, I mean, this is the last part for this topic. We have 4 exceptions. Please read on your own. Okay, and then if you have anything to ask, we are going to have a short discussion just before we discuss the new topic next week. Okay, so you can read on your own all the 4 exceptions here. It comes with all the cases to illustrate the application, but it's quite straightforward actually. Okay, I think you won't have any problem to understand the last part of our topic lah. Okay, exceptions. Any question before we adjourn our class for tonight? Okay, everyone is okay? Nabila okay? Shara okay?
Yes, okay.
Alright, Haja okay? Nanti you read lah.
Alhamdulillah, okay, doktor.
Alright, read on your own the last part of the topic lah for tonight. So I stop share and I want to stop record now.